Yo, yo, it's ODB from OLP. Thanks for coming back and rocking with us like you do every episode for most of you. So thank you so much. This is episode 391. We're going to jump into the episode right now. I want to thank our title sponsor, Scraping the Coast, every June in Biloxi, one of the biggest and baddest truck shows, car shows even, rather, that you'll ever attend. Big ups to the kinfolk. Also, huge thanks to Fenix Forge. Fenix Forged, that's Fenix Forged. Very good people. They're going to continue releasing new products in the market. And if you're watching us on YouTube, over here, it's kind of hard for me to point the way my brain works. Back over here is our 2025 OLP awards that Fenix Forge did for us. We can't thank them enough. Those are those spinner necklaces, if you will. On this episode, I'm going to call Tripp in just a few minutes from the Freaks. He's going to talk about the Freakin Weekend. If you've been a longtime listener, you know that essentially the Freakin Weekend is 3 months almost to the day after Scraping the Coast. And that's going to be, of course, in September of 2025, right? So it's an amazing show. We hope that you're going to come out. Mike and I will be there. I've been now, this will be the second year that I've been, and it was an awesome show. So we're going to talk to him. We're also going to, I'm going to sit down with Sean P., also known as Sean Patrick. He's married to Donna Mahaney, and that's where her Donna Mahaney Patrick name comes from. I know Sean's had a lot going on. We'll talk a little bit about that, health piece at the end of his interview. So I highly ask and suggest that you stick with us to the end if you can there. The episode overview is brought to you by our kinfolk at Hammered Weekend Wear. That's HAMMERD weekendwear.com. Great people. Hit their website and buy some merch if you can. They're good folks. They go to shows nationwide. So if you see the trailer, go by, slap hands with the kinfolk and let them know that OLP sent you. This intro, I'm going to go through quicker just to try to get through it so I can call a Tripp, which I'm going to call him in just a couple of minutes here. The breaking news, this is huge. So the day of this recording, July 23rd, one day prior on July 22nd, 2025, it was announced that Ozzy Osbourne has passed away. Very sad news for music fans, especially of the metal genre. And many of you that are my age that grew up in the era when, folks were saying, Ozzy Osbourne is the devil and he's a bad person and he did all these horrible things and whatnot. Some of that was probably contrived, right? We know the Ozzy that we love is for the music, right? From Black Sabbath all the way to his solo career. But rest in peace. Certainly one thing that stood out to me was I talked to the big homie who I call OGDG, which is Dan Gilliland. He's a good dude. We've had him on and we've become great friends. And he's out in SoCal, down in like San Diego area. And he and I were talking just a couple weeks ago. I think it was a Black Sabbath concert. There was that big concert overseas. And I think it was even like available to stream through like pay-per-view style. And it was a concert that went I think like an entire day, maybe almost a whole weekend. But a lot of people got a chance to give their flowers or give flowers, if you will, to Ozzy. And, just seeing some of that footage now and seeing him perform and hearing how good his voice did sound, it's very fitting, I think, of a way for Ozzy to go out doing what he loved. So rest in peace, Ozzy Osbourne. The breaking news is brought to you by the kinfolk at Lone Star Throwdown. Don't just take our word for it. Ask anybody in the scene. LST, also known as Lone Star Throwdown, every February in Conroe, Texas. It's an amazing event. Let's not forget that they have the classic truck throwdown, which up until now has always been kind of in that June, July timeframe. So that's their sister spinoff show. We hope to see at LST 2026 next year in Conroe. The general updates, this one's short and sweet this week. My wife and I, about a month ago, we got a chance to go up to Ohio for a Lincoln meet, is what they call them. The Lincoln and Continental Owners Club, which used to be called the Lincoln Continental Owners Club, COC for short. This organization has been around since 1953. So you talk about old school. Of course, Lincolns have been around. The brand just celebrated, 100 years. Recently. It was very cool, and I've often talked about this, and I know in magazines in the 90s and even into the 2000s, the Courtney Halliwells and the Brian McCormicks and even Steve Stillwell, they wrote about, getting out of your comfort zone, maybe going to a different style show. Like maybe you're a mini trucker, but what value would you have going to a lowrider show or going to a hot rod show? And many of us are just like car enthusiasts. So I think we already do that. If you think about all of the folks my age now and younger that are going to the Good Guys events, it's freaking awesome, right? I mean, we're enthusiasts. It's like, it's in our blood, I think is the way to say it. So the only thing I will tell you is we had a blast. I often talk about, going to a truck show or going to an event, trying to do other things. And that's what we did. We went to Kings Island, I think is what it was called. I keep wanting to say King's Castle, but I think it's Kings Island theme park. We did the fast passes. We were there, not even 5 hours. We got to experience everything that we wanted to do. It was a hot day. We got a chance to enjoy the anemones there. Amenities. I always mess that word up too. And that was great. But the key thing is I enjoyed the fact that the show was at the hotel. And I know there's some mini truck shows that are like that, but it was so awesome. Like if you got super hot and, you've talked somebody's ear off like I always do, and you're ready to take a break, you could go inside, get some of that Freon poisoning that we all love, the air conditioning, if you will, but also taking, a dip in the pool. And it was just a great time. So that Lincoln show back in June, I want to thank Tim Wilson. I'm going to talk more about those events on my Lincoln Addict podcast, which is another podcast. I've been very slow to get out new content, but I'm trying to balance everything as I've reinforced here, especially with the shop and things that I've had going on personally. So the general updates is brought to you by Southeast Mini Truckin Nationals, also known as Mini Nats. You'd have to be sleeping under a rock to not to know that Mini Nats takes place annually in the month of April in Maggie Valley, North Carolina. Come on out. Join us in 2026. It's an amazing event. Tip of the cap to Jason Bell and team. Follow Southeast Mini Truckin Nationals, aka Mini Nats, on social media, including Instagram and Facebook, for more information. This week, I got the trivia with Miggity Mike The Mayor, and if you haven't already seen or heard, Miggity Mike The Mayor is out. He is out gallivanting. This guy is hard to nail down. I've said it before. There's intel that I've got that says that he was out of the country. I've been lining things up. It's really odd. The Fire Festival just sold. Mike was down in Mexico, supposedly. It's really ironic because the Smut Bandit has been running amok, I heard, down in Mexico. And no disrespect to Mexico, but the Smut Bandit gets around. So it's really odd. I've never not seen, I know it's a double negative, Miggity Mike and the Smut Bandit together. I don't know if I said that right, but we've never seen those two guys together. So almost like I'm feeling like a Clark Kent Superman deal. But, could the Fire Festival be coming to Florida? Only Mike could try to pull the nose of the plane of that event up. So we'll have to see. Maybe we'll get him on the phone. All of his burner numbers appear to be disconnected. Mike, if you happen to get the smoke signal here from OLP, give us a call. You know what I'm saying? But the trivia is, I got two questions for you. Okay, not just one question for you. The first question is, of course, are you ready? And as always, Mike, if he was here not gallivanting, he would say, yeah, he's always ready to get it wrong. So the first one's kind of a fun one. I often go back to the 80s, but for this one, I want to go back to good old 1995, which, was a while ago, right? 30 years ago, which is kind of crazy to think. And we're in now 2025. But can you name 3 of the top 10 grossing movies of good old 1995? Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, yo, ODB, like, how am I going to, know this? Well, think about, like, did you graduate in 95 or 96 or 98 or whatever year? That helps you kind of back into 1995. Like, where was I in 1995? Some of the old school dudes, like a Matt Weathers, is going to be like, yo, man, I was getting crazy in Washington back in 95. Other people are going to be like, yo, I was in middle school, maybe elementary school in good old 1995. But I'm going to go through the top 10 really quick. Batman Forever, number 1, 184 mil. So all of these are going to be into the millions. 184. Apollo 13, 172. Toy Story, yes, Pixar classic. That one actually came out in November of 95. So if you think about it, it only had that 6 week run to the end of the year, but that was 146. Pontus, 139. Ace Ventura, When Nature Calls, 103 mil. Casper, that animated film, Universal Pictures, of course, 100 mil. Die Hard with a Vengeance in that era, 92 mil. Crimson Tide, 91 mil. GoldenEye, you may not remember the film at 91 mil, but most of you are probably going to remember the N64 game. And then Waterworld, which often is referred to as a bust. It took a lot to make that Universal Pictures film, but that was 88 mil. So did you get at least one or two or three of those? If you did, we've got the virtual binder for you that we're going to have you put a tick mark in, because Miggity Mike the Mayor is out. But I also came up with one other fun one. This is for our 80s fans out there. Insanely popular album. Classic, not even a cult classic, dropped on July 21st of 1987. So what album dropped on July 21st, 1987? And this was an insanely popular album. It really kicked off this era that had a run of 5, 6, 7 years of just a lot of music from this band. And the reason why I bring this up is at the time of this recording, again, July 23rd. So, we're almost going back 40 years, I think, if my calculation's correct, 38 years ago this week. And of course, I just happen to have my copy here. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, I always like to talk about I keep receipts. I've got my receipt there. And this was in an era that I was not going to the music store the day of the releases. That didn't really start transpiring for me until 93, I believe. The first album I think I bought the day of was on my born day, 11/23 of 9 Trey. And that was Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style. But this album here, if you're on YouTube, you might get a chance to see right there. October 18th of good old 1989. I got my receipt here, and pretty cool. This was $6.75. And I know some of you listening on the podcast are going, yo, I'm just listening to the audio, ODB. What are you talking about? We're talking about Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. Maybe in the future, I'll talk about there is an alternate, the original album cover that does get shelved, I guess is what you could say. It kind of gets put on the back burner, and then they put out, this alternate album cover. The true GNR fans will know, but yeah, Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. If you think about, do you feel old yet? If you're from my era, you go, wow, crazy. What a classic. I'm not the biggest Guns N' Roses fan, but I love that era. I have one of the Rolling Stone magazines they put out years ago where they kind of compiled all the stories, and just really cool to look back in that era. I know a lot of the females in that era. I had a neighbor, Stacy, and her whole room was all of the posters, like straight out of something you'd see in Stranger Things. Good old 1987 with some GNR, but classic album, July 21st, 1987. The trivia with Miggity Mike the Mayor, who's out gallivanting, is brought to you by the great Kinfolk at Garage Gear Clothing. I don't give these guys enough credit. I'm wearing my Garage Gear Clothing shirt today for the recording of this audio. And it is the Mazda shirt. The great thing about this brand is sport trucks, full sizes, step vans, mini trucks, dualies, you name it. They have it on merchandise. They also have stuff for the females, including the children's. Is that how you say it? The children out there. So go out to garagegearclothing.com and let them know that OLP sent you. Next, we got the scene updates. This one is super short. I just want to reinforce as we're getting closer, and I meant to cover this. I think I forgot on the last episode, but the Spark Show. This is an amazing show in Sevierville, Tennessee every year, and it's the 8th, 9th, and 10th. They do a cruise through Pigeon Forge. So, if you think about that rich history of mini truck culture in that entire area, that for our friends at, Lowest Common Denominator podcast, LCD podcast, often talk about such all that rich history. Get up to the Spark Show. We've told you year after year after year. Now, unfortunately, with me kind of going to less shows, I'm just, it's not one that I can make every year. And, it actually falls the same weekend as my wife's grandfather, who's going to be 95 years old, still drives around, still plays cards with his buddies, still has a great time. I hope that I can do that, Lord willing, if I make it to 95. But we're going to be spending time with him that weekend. So I won't be there, but I can tell you this, I've been there many times. And Dizzy and Adam treat us better than family. Okay. They have always looked out for OLP. That's why we always look out for Hammered Weekend Wear. They're great people. Corey Floyd and all the families that kind of get together and cover this event. Get out there. The Spark Show on Instagram and Facebook. The other show that I wasn't planning to cover, but it just popped in my head. If you are looking to get out in September, Drop 'em Where is hosting Rad Rides at the park. Okay. And if you just go on Facebook and you type in Rad Rides, all separate words, at the park, you're going to see it September 13th and 14th, all day event. And then Jeff Burgum is coming down from Wisconsin. He was just at Camp and Drag. He had his step van, which I call the Rad van. He's got a couple of the, Rad tribute bikes in it. It's airbagged and it's very cool. That's going to be all the way down in North Carolina. And that, of course, is at Tanglewood Park. So again, I don't want to spoon feed you guys too much information. Clemens, North Carolina. There's more information. I'm planning to go. The reason being is Jeff has been he's going to basically have Bill Allen there. So Bill Allen's going to fly out. He's from the 1986 cult classic Rad. Many of you know. If you look over here, I love the film Rad. It was a big part of my childhood and watched it pretty much every day, I think, as a kid. So it's an amazing film. You'll be able to get autographs, and it just will be cool. If that's something you want to do, maybe you've got an old mongoose and you want to have it signed, or you've got an item that you want to have signed. Bill has signed multiple things for me over the course of the few times I met him. I want to say like 3 times maybe I met him, but certainly a great guy, and we look forward to that. The Scene Updates is brought to you by local Ridez Mag. That's Ridez with a Z, not an S. Google or search the internet for local Ridez Mag with a Z and pick up some issues. They're good people. Hut 1, Hut 2, Hut 3, Hut, Old Dirty Ballard, live and uncut. Again, brought to you by Fenix Forged. And if I go ahead and point, and I just think about where I got to point to, I can maybe do it a little bit better. But again, thank you to Kennedy for creating our amazing awards that are gaining a lot of buzz in the scene. But ODB Live and Uncut, look, this one's simple. Focus on whatever is in front of you, whether you're trying to be more of a family person, or you're trying to, finish a project, a home project, a car, a truck. Maybe you're trying to move up in your career or build a business. Focus on those things, right? Sometimes we have to make sacrifices and maybe sell something that we don't want to kind of get to that next level. Maybe we've got to reshift our time and, not hang out with the homies as much because we've got, some other thing in front of us that we're trying to accomplish. Focus. Okay. That's really what it takes. In my opinion, to be successful. You got to focus. I make lists every week. I love using notes. I don't write things down so much. I pretty much kind of write them, if you will, in my notes. And I like to do the checklist so I can click that little deal and go, boom, it's off the list. I did it. And by putting things to paper, so to speak, I think that's what the guy, Branson for Virgin, the Virgin Mobile, Virgin Company, airlines, all that. That's what he always talked about. He, to commit what your ideas to paper somehow, some way, whether that's a note, a notepad, a post-it, or in my case, digital notes. Again, thank you to Fenix Forged. If you want to get custom awards made, you could reach out to Kennedy. You could ask him. Now, his bread and butter is making these awesome wheels for these lifted vehicles, but I know he's going to continue to expand. And we saw that with Bill's dually from Aftermath, Louisiana. We've seen it with Barsha's dually from NC, Florida, running those Fenix Forged wheels, 2 massively popular and awesome dually trucks in our scene that are running, you named it, Fenix, Fenix, Forged wheels. Podcast updates, no updates this week, but I'm going to go ahead and call Tripp now so we can get him on the phone to talk a little bit about the Freakin Weekend. He's a great guy. Now, he did text me a few minutes ago and he said, yo, ODB, my coverage is really bad where I'm at, so we're not going to be able to do video. I'll be on video, but I'll have to pipe in something for him because we're only able to do audio from my understanding. And then after that, we'll roll right into Sean P. I hope all is well with what you got going on medically. Do the best you can out there to be proactive with your own health, everyone, and stay on the rise. Much love and respect. Thank you for the support, and share this with the homies and the club mates and the chicas and the homegirls out there that might appreciate the content on YouTube and or your favorite podcast app. ODB, we got ya. Peace. Yo, I'm so happy to sit down with Tripp, TRI in the house. We talked to Sean
What up?
P recently. Now we're talking to TRI. What's up, dog?
Man, chilling, brother.
Dude, the freaking weekend is, dude, still making waves in this industry of ours, this mini truck scene, this car scene. Biloxi. The thing that's blowing my mind, dude, is you're talking like third, fourth year, and you guys
Yeah,
are killing it with the freaking weekend.
yeah, going into the third year now, so a couple months away. This will be our third one.
Yeah, if you guys don't trust us, it's the freaking with an IN weekend.com. You want to come out to Harrah's Gulf Coast. Tripp, if you're in an elevator, right, and you got a
Okay.
couple hot chicks, and they're like,
hmm
hey, we've heard about this show in Biloxi. We don't know. Like, what's the elevator pitch? Like, the who, what, why, where, and when?
Biggest beach party of the summer.
Dude, that's right
That's
there.
it. That's
And
it.
here's what I say. If you got to drop a deuce, you just go up the stairs, you walk across the boardwalk, and you're back at your room.
You can go take a nap, go to the pool, drop a deuce, whatever you need to do.
You know what I'm saying? But here's what they don't understand. We've been trying to tell them since last year. Talk to us about the Friday pre-party and the Saturday after party.
Yeah, so Friday night it's a hospitality night. So Misty and the Devil's Rejects people, they put together food, free beer. We got the DJs going all night. We got free food, free beer, and we just party until everybody kind of fades out. And then Saturday night is the party. It's the pool party that everybody tries to get to. They shut down the whole pool deck for us. They give us all the bars. They give us the pool. You know, we got DJ Get Low and Toast out there all night. It's a good time. The party is Saturday night.
Listen, it was super cool to mingle with all the different truck clubs last year, right? A lot of the clubs are going to get some of those cabanas, right? They're going to maybe kind of fork over a little bit of dough and rent those out. You'll
Yep.
also have the belly flop in, dude, the bikini contest. That reminded me of the old Daytona days. What was cool is that the ladies had fun out there. It didn't get too crazy where like somebody's like, oh my God, my 13-year-old son, this and that. But for the most part, it's mostly adults on Saturday night anyways.
Yeah, so Saturday night's 18 and up. So that's a casino rule. You can't even come into the party onto the pool deck unless you're 18. And then obviously 21 to drink. So everybody that comes out there is 18 and up, and we cater to that. The people that come to it are looking forward to that, but we keep it fairly tame. The bikini contest is what it is, and then the belly flop contest that Chunky Boys does every year. It is what it is. It's a good time.
They kill it. They always give out the free koozie. Chunky Boys, big shout out to those good kinfolk there.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
yeah, they gave out hats and stuff last year and koozies and had a big title belt. It was a good time.
dude, explain to us. So, like, if you had a Friday, Saturday on a piece of paper and you put the line down the middle, what do you have to do Friday to get into the party? What do you have to do Saturday to get in the party?
So Friday, just show up. That's for everybody. If you're in town for the show or you're in town, just to hang out, like you can come out Friday night. That's for everybody. Misty cooks a bunch of food, brings a bunch of beer. We have sodas, waters, everything. That's free to anyone who shows up. The pre-party, it's gotten so hard to kind of manage the amount of tickets that people are wanting for those. So we kind of push that to pre-registered people only.
Nice.
We'll have a handful for sale Saturday, but those are going to be first come, first serve, and it's going to be very minimal. But that is kind of a pre-reg only, and then sponsors, obviously.
Yeah. So the key is the freaking with an IN, so thefreakinweekend.com. When you go there and you buy tickets, now keep me honest, we want to reinforce, of course, the 19th, 20th, 21st, right? That Friday to Sunday.
Right.
But if they pre-reg by the end of August, they can get in that exclusive party on Saturday night.
Correct. So we don't have gates. It's free to get into the show all weekend. So we don't do wristbands or anything like that. It's free to come and go. But when you register, you get 2 wristbands to the pre-party, or you're allotted 2 wristbands to the pre-party. To the after party on Saturday. So when you register, it comes with 2 passes.
Excellent. Yep. Now, something that we've continued to see is this show sells out every year, okay? You want to go out there to the freakinweekend.com and pre-register. The awesome thing that I love about it is the show field is humongous, but you also have lifted vehicles. Man, I wish I would have got video of the lifted. I think it was like, dude, it looked like a monster truck coming in there last year. That thing sounded like literally like Grave Digger. Right?
Yeah, he's bringing 2 this year. The guy's name's Aaron. He's from Mobile. He owns an off-road shop, and
Sick.
Yeah, it's crazy. It was a Jeep, but it was massive. Yeah. It was 20 foot tall.
I was like, bro. But then you had NC bringing out the old little shop, 2015 dually. You had Scott and Jenelise. You had Committed Club holding it down. Some Severed guys. It's everybody's out there. The show field is great, and what I cannot stress enough, kinfolk, is that when you want to go back to the room, if you booked at Harrah's where you need to book, you walk up the little stairs, you walk across the boardwalk, and you're back in the lobby of the hotel. So if you want to go back and get a refreshment, take a quick shower, do your damn business, dude, you go do the business and then you're back in the show field.
Yeah, it's perfect, man. You park your vehicle, you can drop it off on Thursday, and you don't have to go anywhere. There's steak and shakes, there's high-end restaurants, there's snack places, there's Starbucks. You can, you don't have to. You can walk to everywhere you need to from the show field.
Now, I know you couldn't do what you do without Ridez and Amplified Designs. Talk to us about them or any of the other vendors or award guys that you want to really plug.
Yeah, so Kyle has been, he's been our title sponsor since day one. The day we decided to do the show, he jumped on, and he's locked in forever. He kind of takes care of a lot of the upfront and the back end stuff for us and makes everything possible. Ridez, obviously, they're a partner on the show. They make everything possible as far as giving us the venue and kind of free run to do everything we want to do. And then this year, for the after party, we brought in Alpha Customs out of Louisiana. They're kind of footing the bill and helping us put together an even better after party than we had last year. So
dude, I'm telling you, thefreakinweekend.com, when you go to buy tickets, you're going to see it's $55 plus a very, very less than $2 fee. You want to pre-register now. Now, keep me honest. Was it? I may have said end of August. Are you going to extend the pre-reg out, or are you going to stop into July?
I'm gonna run it out to the end of August. It'll close the last day of August. You have up until midnight on the last day of August, I guess the 31st, to register. And as soon as that happens, it'll be first come, first serve at the gate if there's any left.
Now, Tripp represents Freaks, right? Freaks.
Yes, sir.
Now, but here's the cool thing. There's so many clubs here. I would tell you, please, if you go to one show between now and the end of the year, come to the Freakin Weekend. We're going to have mini truck and row in conjunction with the Freakin Weekend. There's going to be lifted, lowered, classic, hot rods, you name it. It's $55 for the most part. And even if you paid $55 just a pre-reg to get in to go to the after party on Saturday, you're getting 2 wristbands, right? That's like $25, $26, $27 a pop. Just the party alone is worth it. Even if you said, yo, ODB, I work Saturday, I work Sunday, but we're going to float into town to party. Pre-reg now. Get your tickets because it's that awesome of a show.
Yeah, it's worth every penny. Like the after party is where it's at. Like, you want to be there. You don't want to miss out.
I want to ask you one more question for awards, right? We don't all do it for the awards, but we know awards are an important, integral part of a scene, right? Of an event. Who, any key information, who, what, why, where, when with the awards?
Awards will be, we usually run them about noon on Sunday, just depending. Sometimes we run them early, but typically noon on Sunday is when awards get ran.
And you're going to have a bunch of different kinfolk you're working with, or how you working those this year?
Yeah, so we got some. We deal with Lit FX. They do some light up awards for us for all of our specialty stuff. And then Ben Crease is going to be painting some of our awards too for our specialty stuff.
Amazing. But what I want everybody to know is these aren't just the Rinky Dink awards. These are something cool that you can put on your mantle. You go out there, you put the hard work in your vehicles, you get recognized. The Freakin with an IN weekend. Tripp, it's always good linking up. Any other key things you want to reinforce? We'll have you back on in about 3 or 4 weeks to do the same.
Pre-register. You got about 6 weeks. That's it. That's all I can stress right now. If you want to be there, make it happen.
Listen, we will keep it legal on Saturday night. You promise, right?
100%.
100%. I love it, dude. The belly flop, so fun to watch. I couldn't do it, but I will not miss the bikini contest, man. I might be married, but I go out there and I have a damn good time kicking it with all the homies, and we have a fun watching these
for sure.
dance, and it's a good time. So thefreakinweekend.com. They're on socials, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or nah?
Facebook, Instagram, and then you can find a bunch of stuff on the Tripp Did It TikTok pages.
Yes, and I wanted to reinforce that. I'm glad you said that. You do help. I know you probably don't talk a lot about it. You do help some other events behind the scenes. Tripp Did It.
Yeah, Tripp Did It Media. We do a lot of stuff with your absent partner and some other shows around the country. Help do some promotion stuff with.
Yeah, so if you want to get down with Tripp, hit him up. He's good people. TRIPP, kind of like the DOGG, but on a whole nother level. My brother, keep the guerrilla marketing up, and I cannot wait, dude. I cannot wait. We're going to promo this thing hard because we want people to come out and have fun. Tripp, stay on the rise, my brother.
Appreciate you, brother.
Yo, I'm so excited to sit down with my big homie from the West Coast, East and West Connect. Sean, how you doing, Sean Patrick?
A little warm today.
Dude, I heard our homies over in Arizona are hitting like the 120s. I was like, y'all can keep that.
That's pretty much what they get every summer. So my dad used to live there and he moved back to Washington. So he's not missing the heat.
I never want to live where you're not allowed to have grass in your front yard. You have to have rocks. I'm out.
I saw a lot of houses that had grass. It might have been artificial, but
turf doesn't count, Sean. It's funny, I call you Sean P because I watch Dennis Collins' YouTube, and one of his guys is his name, he calls him Sean P. So I'm like, Sean Patrick, Sean P. But man, let's kick it off. How you doing?
Doing all right. I'm just living life as best as I can and doing whatever I can when I can.
You know it. Some of you may have seen the thumbnail. Maybe you were drawn here from Instagram or YouTube. Stay with us throughout this interview. We're going to be able to do a very cool, in-depth interview discussion with the big homie Sean Patrick. And Sean, you know, I always like to start off, like, let's go back to the roots. Like, where did you grow up? Like, were you a West Coast guy, like, even as a kid?
I've been on the West Coast my entire life. I grew up in a little town just south of Seattle and north of Tacoma called Auburn, Washington. Don't really know where to go with that, but, grew up in a little tiny town, had a football coach for a dad and a state representative lady that for a mom, and just kind of lived life as the best I could.
Do you remember, like, when you were younger and you think back to the skateboarding and the BMX and freestyle stuff that, like, a lot of us were attached to growing up on the East Coast? You know, what's funny, I guess, pun intended, I'm wearing the West Coast Influence shirt. Shout out to Radar. But like, there was really, for us, there was a West Coast influence, because when we look at BMX or car magazines or all that stuff, it was like all coming out of California. Even though you were up in Auburn, right? So you're north of Cali, of course, south of Canada. Did you ever feel like you were still part of the West Coast influence, if you will?
Mini trucking came up not too long after it really hit big in California. I started doing mini truck stuff about 91, early 91, I'd say. And it really kind of got me to get away from doing the childhood antics that people get into, hanging around the wrong crowd, doing the wrong thing. And it got me to focus my energy towards using my hands and to really focus all my energy into one thing. And I met so many great people, shameless plug to Jamie Swift of Mini Tricker Cult. Watching him with his Isuzu build that thing throughout the years and what it started out as and what it became. And it really inspired me to continue to grow and to just keep trying new things. And I did get out of mini trucking for years, and thankfully I got back into it in 2016. And I'm here to stay. I'm not leaving again.
I appreciate you sharing the backstory, and I appreciate you kind of giving the flowers, right, to some of the homies that you either looked up to or that you networked early on, because, as you know, I do believe that's a big part of, tipping a cap to a guy that maybe gave you that influence. And I think that's super important. Did you find yourself, like a lot of us back in that era, not that we're old guys, but like you took shop in high school and things like that? Did that help sway kind of where you wanted to go with your hands and some of the skills?
Again, like I was saying, I wasn't the best kid growing up, so I never made it to the actual high school. I was in an alternative high school where we weren't allowed to do the automotive shop.
Yep.
But I focused every day. I had a good friend, Judd. His dad had a top fuel drag car, and I was always watching him ranch. He started teaching me how to work in his machine shop when I was 14. So I was starting to learn how to use tools and machinery and to use my hands to really create stuff. And then just continued on when I met some mini truckers. A good friend of mine who's since passed away, Brett, really was the first mini trucker that I met. And then he introduced me to Jamie because they was part of the same car club at the time.
Dude, that's pretty sweet to hear some of the early stories. And much like our homie DJ Mays, your East Coast homie from RA, Jason, what's cool is, he has that, to use Ronnie's word from C10 Talk, the lineage back to the drag strip and things like that his dad was into. And it's pretty awesome as we get older. I think when we were younger, we were, to your point, we are all focused on mini trucks. But as we got a little bit older, we realized like we fall under the umbrella of everything automotive. We could hit the drag strip, we could hit the Section 8, or not Section 8, the Derby 8, whatever it's called. All of that stuff, and it's just awesome.
Yeah, actually, I left mini trucks. I want to say early 2000. Excuse me. Got into Volkswagens, and I ended up going through about 22 of them in about 8 years. Some of them I owned for an hour, some I owned for a week. It was just, the hustle of trying to make money and have fun in life. And, And then in 2016, I was dealing with an injury, and my good friend Todd Hayden was starting to bring back negative behavior car club. So I said, "Hey, I sold the truck that I had at the time and bought the Nissan that I ended up bringing down here with me when I moved down here." So, and it's all been downhill since.
I like it. All downhill since. I do want to talk about the VW stuff a little bit and kind of the car flipping era and things and how things have gotten more expensive. But I want to ask you this. I mean, no matter what you were getting into back in the day, good or bad, do you have any recollections from an era that a lot of people aren't going to be able to experience? Like you think back to like the early grunge days, right? Up in, I'm in Florida, you're completely Washington, in the continental United States, you're all the way up there. Do you have any recollection of like when the Nirvanas of the world and Pearl Jams and all that stuff was coming up? I mean, do you remember that stuff?
I actually got to meet Kurt Cobain many years ago before he was really super, super famous. I lived not far from Aberdeen. I was a good 40 minutes from Aberdeen where I lived.
Wow.
And I got to meet him. And great guys. I ended up running into a Chris Cornell house party up in West Seattle. Just walked up to the door and just walked right in, and like nothing, like I knew everybody or something, and just got to party, and I ended up meeting him, and super great guys. They those kind of people. Kurt was a little strange, but he was such a personable guy. If you got to meet him on a day where he was just relaxed, if he was uptight, he was not fun to be around. That I still listen to a lot of the old what do they call it, grunge music from Seattle days. And it's I grew up on Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, and so it's still a part of my life.
Yeah, saying what an era is really like an understatement.
Yes.
I recall I was talking to someone recently, like back when MTV was jamming, early 90s into the mid 90s, and they were playing Cypress Hill, Insane in the Brain, like over and over. And it was kind of like that grunge rap. But we heard so much about even Nirvana and things like that. And I was talking to my son the other day. Nirvana famously came to Ybor City, which is about 30 minutes from us, before they blew up, as those acts would, travel. Yep. And, their fan base would grow. And of course, I was too young to have gone and seen it. But it's neat looking back. A couple of guys I watch on YouTube, one guy's called Scott on Tape, and he does a lot of the movie side pop culture stuff. And it's been neat because like some of the famous photos of Nirvana, like where they're underwater, I think was one of the inserts to the album, like where they're underwater was like in Pasadena at a pool.
The Nevermind album.
Yep. And then there you go. And then when they filmed Smells Like Teen Spirit, that would like people like have the original flyer, and then they found the warehouse up there where they went and filmed it, and like all that stuff is awesome to me.
Yeah, it's having pieces of history like that, you're pretty lucky. Because, especially when, Kurt Cobain passed away, Chris Cornell's passed away, a lot of good musicians have passed away to either suicide or to drugs, and it's heartbreaking to see that.
Yeah, it is. And when you think about like our parents, sort of the generation before us, growing up in the rock and roll era, and them seeing some of that stuff. But I think in the 90s, to your point, a lot of people that we looked up to or that we appreciated their music, it impacted us in a certain way. Now, like moving forward from like the grunge stuff, like, is there any like kind of rock band kind of music stuff that you listen to that's newer, or do you mostly stick with the old school stuff?
I listen to a little bit of everything, jazz not being one of them. I like a mix. It depends on my mood for the day. If I'm having a frustrating day, a 5-finger death punch kind of hard rock, good music, and usually helps me through the day. Or if I'm just kind of feeling bleh, I'll turn on whatever and just listen to like a mellow rock station, or just I dig 70s rock, I dig 80s rock. I listen to it all. So
yeah, we're so fortunate now because I think back, I recently in January I bought for $1 a Fleetwood Mac Rumors on 8-track. Why? I mean, just to have it for $1, right? And you think back to like, how music was distributed on vinyl for so long, and then 8-track had its run, cassettes, CDs, vinyls back. But like for us to have as much music, whether, you're using Pandora for free and you're listening to an ad here or there, Apple Music, you name it, all these different online streamings, it's so cool because like there's a day where I'm listening to like Frank Sinatra, like some old school stuff just to get me in a mood. And then there's other days, like recently, thanks to Tim, NC Florida, I've been listening to 5-Finger Death Punch and just like rocking out, like what you said. So it's cool that it's at our fingertips.
Yeah, I hate having to tune radio stations. I never use the radio in my trucks, cars. I just use Android Auto, and listen to my Pandora, because then I can listen to the music I want to listen to.
Yeah. Quick break for station identification. If you're listening to this, please continue viewing or listening, and make sure you check out Hammered Weekend Wear, HAMMERD, weekendwear.com. Order some merch. Let them know that OLP sent you. Now, this is cool. Like, you talked about crashing a party, right? And just, the good old days. Some of the cool stories I love about Bill Murray, there are these epic stories, and he's been doing this a long time, where, you think about Bill Murray and all the, a superstar, in many regards. I don't think he really looks at himself that way, but I don't know if you've ever heard, but there's been times when, like, on a Friday, like, he'll just walk into like a random wedding and just start, eating some food, having a drink. And then, people are like, oh my God, it's Bill Murray, or he'll get up and play in a band. And to me, like, I always thought, like, if you were the, like, super famous guy, to me, doing stuff like that would just be like, his legacy is just forever etched at, like, dude, this guy's pretty freaking cool.
Well, think about it. He's a super famous guy, and he walks into your wedding. You're never going to forget that.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'd be like, yeah, imagine how much free shit, it's like, hey, Bill, yeah, go ahead, man, take whatever you want.
Yeah, no kidding. I didn't invite any famous guy into. If you already walked in, you can stay. I don't care.
Exactly, man. Hey, the coffer's right over there. You can throw it. Just kidding.
Yeah. There's a bowl over there. Fill it with whatever you want.
Yeah. So talk to us about, like, some of the early, like, you talk about, wow, not to date ourselves, but man, 91 was back in the day, right? That's so cool that, you were in or around or knew of trucks since then. Did you find yourself, like, when you got to driving age and you had the liberty to go out and cruise, like, did you immediately jump into a custom car, or how did that progress over time, Sean P?
My first car was an 82 Cadillac Sedan DeVille, white with a blue vinyl top and the blue velour interior. And
you're probably thinking,
I ran the wheels off that thing. So yeah, I had that, and then ended up completely seizing the motor in it one day, and then got into had an little 86 Golf after that, and then I got my first mini truck, which was 86 and a half hard body.
Yep. When I was younger, I used to be like, what's the half for? And then for people that don't know, it was like, that was when they switched over the body year.
Yeah, mid-year they went from the 720 body style to the D21. And so when you say 86 and a half, people go, huh? And like you said, it's just trying to explain to them that it was a mid-year switch. So, and parts were hard to come by.
Yeah. And it's funny because a lot of people kind of, especially the younger folks, may not realize, like, the 720 merged into that, like, in the competition with all the different little, light trucks and what we call mini trucks. But it is pretty neat to me how that progressed, because it's like, the late 70s into the 80s was like a different game with the minis. Yeah. And of course, in 82, I think it was, Chevy comes along and flexes the muscles with the S10. But yeah, what a different era. And man, a 720 was awesome. But man, the hard bodies came out, which a lot of guys call the D21, I think is like the technical term. But man, what a classic truck that is.
Yeah, I when I got back into mini trucks, I ended up finding a Nissan, a 91 D21 extended cab, and I was like, oh, yep, I'm gonna get back to where I started with. And I had that truck for 5 years. In fact, that truck is still alive and well back in Washington, actually. And a friend of mine owns it up there, and he's running around still.
Yes. Speaking of, getting back to your roots, like, I wanted to kind of talk about this is, I mean, when you see on Facebook and social media, like, so many, like, mini trucking is just, you'll see comments where people, oh, wow, I'm so glad it's cool again, and things like that. Like, what, in your words, like, why do you think the scene that we all love and enjoy is peaking with interest right now?
I think it has a lot to do with the social media aspect, because, when we were all grown up, we didn't have camera phones, we didn't have cell phones. You were lucky to have a pager, and no video evidence, as the wife says.
Yeah.
I think younger kids are seeing this and they're saying, well, I've never seen this before. Well, that's because you weren't around then. And so I think social media has a lot to do with it. It's being brought more to light. I'm glad that it never really died. In some places, it's kind of died out, but to see it starts making a comeback in places. I'm enjoying seeing people bringing rides out that haven't been out in 20, 30 years. Because they've been tucked away in a storage unit or their garage and they just never touched them, and so just like at Kicking It Old School up in Oregon, a guy brought a truck up that hasn't been out in 20 plus years.
The Mazda with the topper?
It was kind of was it a Mazda? I think it was a Mazda. It had a
color. I think,
that
yeah.
salmon color. Yeah. I
Yeah.
haven't seen that truck in years, and so it's nice to see that some of these old rides are still coming out and getting brought back out.
Yeah, and I would encourage people too, like if you think about, I know my philosophy's changed a little bit. I mean, I'm still about support the scene, but I've realized doing this podcast now for we're almost right at 10 years. We got a week or two, but let's say 10 years. I realize like not everybody has the money, has the time, everybody had kids at a different age. Some guys are retired, some are still working. So, it's hard to tell people like go out and support every show or do everything you can do. But what I appreciate,
it's expensive traveling to shows a lot.
Yeah, it is. And what I can appreciate is like Jeff, I know I tipped my cap to the Class Act guys last episode, but those guys like bringing those trucks out, like maybe that guy hadn't been to a show in 20 years and he comes out, he's celebrated just as much as a guy that's been going to shows for 10 years. And I think that's important because, some people with their careers or the way their life, it's not that they turn their back on mini trucking, like you said it earlier. They just, other doors opened and other things like priorities, if you will. So I would encourage a lot of you guys get out there and try to, get some of the older homies to come out and just enjoy a show. Because when they do, man, they're hooked back in. And even if they're only going to 1 or 2 shows a year, they're going to appreciate it.
And I know you and I followed each other for many years. And, you see what Don and I, we try to go to as much out as far as we can and travel as much as we go and do. And it's just a matter of, tomorrow's never promised. Get out and enjoy your life and do what you can, and make memories, make memories with somebody else. And, if you pass tomorrow, they hold that memory for 10, 15 more years, and that's kind of our goal is we're just going to go out and enjoy life and do what we can.
I wanted to get this reference in a minute ago. I meant to have a punchline, but I have read that around the before LL Cool J came back out with Mama Said Knock You Out, he was kind of like, I'm done. And I think it was Run DMC that was like, yo, listen, man, we need another album. And he comes out with Mama Said Knock You Out, and he has that famous line, he goes, don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years. And that's what, like, you kind of reinforce, like, hey, I took a little break. But a lot of people, maybe they've gotten out of the scene. Maybe they don't know all the names. They're kind of shy. They're like, hey, okay, I'll go to the show. You'd look around an hour and I'm going to peel away. But I encourage people, like, go up and slap hands, like at Mini Nats. We have so many people that come by. This one taller gentleman, he was like, man, I was in Truckin in like 1989, like holding the big trophy. Go check this out. And he knew Doug Culp that shot Mini Truckin issue 1. I would encourage people, like, when you go to a show, and don't be shy to like talk to the people and come by our booth and hang out. But number 2, like, if you're an enthusiast, don't put your nose up at people and be like, oh, who's this guy? At least acknowledge them and slap hands and be like, yo, come chill over here. I always tell people, bring a chair later. If you get hot, you got a seat over here. Let's kick it. You don't have to buy anything, but we got free crackers and $10 water, Sean. You know what I'm saying?
No, I mean, like, I know you've been asking me for a few years to come on and do the podcast, and I'm a pretty humble guy. I try not to be a egotistical kind of guy. I'm just a guy, and and I just like to enjoy life, and like I said, and meeting some of the people that I've met, and this car especially has really brought a lot of people into my life that I've never met before, but because of the history of this car, it's, they're like, you're an inspiration, and I just never thought of myself as that. And I've never been an on camera screen kind of guy. I'm not here to flaunt myself and flaunt my life, but, to watch people build their dreams. I just at a car show a couple weeks ago, a young kid, probably say about 17, comes up to me, says, asked me what year my car was. And I told him 94. And he says, I have a 94, but it doesn't look like this. I said, but it could. All you have to do is get the will to do it. Whether you do it, you work for it, you do it yourself, just do it. If that's your goal, do it. Don't let anybody get in the way.
I like it, Sean P. That's badass. And that was a good segue because I want to ask you this. Like, I want to get to the car, but when you think about like some of those early customs that you had, do you look back and say, wow, like that really did help me like do what you're doing now with the car that we're going to talk about? Like when you look back at it, do you feel like, hey, I mean, I was in this early and yeah, I took a little bit of a break. Do you think that helped you kind of reacclimate yourself to the scene?
Coming back in, when I was in mini trucks, I still never owned a bagged ride. They were all static drops, just,
Sure.
set them 2 inches off the ground. We're good.
Yeah.
And so when I bought that Nissan, I went with airbags because I wanted more comfort because I now, I'm older. I now have a bad back. I wanted more comfort. And so it's not only I look at the things that I've been able to learn with the new advances that have come since, I left mini trucks to coming back, so it gives me a chance to learn something. And in the great words of Gene Winfield, every day's a school day. So every day, try to teach yourself something, and getting back into mini trucks is helped me mentally so much, and learning and getting back to life.
Yeah, well said, man. I want to talk a little bit more about that too. But for those that don't know, like you hinted earlier, we know that you're the husband to your better half. In all seriousness, Donna Mahaney Patrick. Talk to us a little bit
He's
about.
hiding right over here.
Yeah, one of my favorite guests we've had on, by the way. So she's amazing. We got to make sure we reinforce that. Good people.
Got to boost her ego a little more.
Hey, we're gonna keep boosting because she's good peeps. But when you think about, like, for those, you don't have to give us the whole thing, but for those that don't know, you are the husband of Donna Mahaney Patrick. And it was pretty cool that you guys met a few years back, and then that's what led my understanding to you moving down there to Cali.
Yes, actually, when Sean Mahaney passed away, I knew about the foundation that she had started in his name, knew what it was for. I totally agreed behind it. I had followed Sean through not social media, but through television and magazine. I had always enjoyed his work and the things he had done. And so I reached out to her and invited her up to, I was hosting a show in Washington, and I invited her up to be a special judge for a special award that she picked who won it. And then we were going to host an auction to try to help raise some money for the foundation. And it was kind of funny because it was during the whole time with the whole crew cut gas monkey thing. So she was inundated with that. And then one day she just kind of hits me up. She goes, "Hey, I'm supposed to talk to this guy in Washington about a car show." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." And so it kind of blossomed from there into a really good friendship that we talked every day. And so after the car show in Washington, I came down and helped with the Chonko show in 2018. And that was kind of like, hey, let's see if we get along. So I'm retired now. And so if we can't get along with each other for 7 days, it's not going to work before I move 1,000 miles. And sure enough, we didn't kill each other by the end of the week. So after the show, I drove home and grabbed my truck and all my tools and clothes and stuff and came back down.
Yeah, it's amazing. And what I want people to know, although tragedy happens in the world, good things can flourish from it. And an example, I heard this story years ago. There's an NFL insider, Adam Schefter, and there's a book, The Man I Never Met, and he tells the story of his wife's first husband, Joe, Mayo, who died in the North Tower of the World Trade Center on 9/11. He left behind his wife, Sherry, and their 15-year-old son, Devin. 5 years later, Sherry remarried to Schefter. Say that 10 times fast. Sherry married Schefter. But you get where I'm going with this, that, like, I tell people not to go in the whole story, but like when my wife was 9 years old, before I ever met her, obviously, her dad passed away, and her dad was older than her mom, and they think that he had gotten cancer from painting college dorm rooms when he was going to Pitt, and that's where Dan Marino went.
Yeah.
And it was a tragedy. And, her mom, had these two younger kids, and they had a successful business they sold, and she remarried about a year later. And like some of the family, were like, "Oh, well, that's weird." And the thing I tell everybody is, like, don't judge other people. Cause like, if you haven't walked a mile in their shoes, and I think that's important because, again, out of any challenge in life or a negative situation, those things are very tough for us all, but there can be light at the end of that tunnel.
Yes. She came into my life in a time that I needed her, and I think vice versa. I don't know if she'll say that, but
yeah, we've got a fax right over here that says otherwise. No, I'm just kidding. I don't have a fax machine yet. I'm looking for one, Sean P.
I don't think I have one. I haven't seen a fax machine in over a decade. So
I want to send Mike a fax that says, like, Back to the Future, "You're fired."
Oh yeah, but you got to put Cusco at the top.
Right. But so one of the main things I wanted to talk to you about today is what's behind you. So the Honda Accord, the 9.4, let's be honest. So we're waiting for September 4th for the 9.4. This car has some history. So talk to us a little bit about like how did it go down that you acquired this car and devised this plan?
So was it 2.5 years ago? I knew this car. A friend of mine who has since passed away owned this car many years ago, and painted the original graphics on it when he owned it. This car came up for trade. The guy wanted to trade for an extended cab pickup. I was currently building a '99 Sonoma, and it was one of those builds where if you've ever built something and you're a year and a half into it, but you've never fallen in love with it, but you're like where it's going, but I'm not in love with it, where
Yep.
I could not live without it. And I I reached out to the guy that had the car, and in its current state, it was actually a Tiffany Island blue Bear Home Depot rattle can paint job. It was completely horrible paint job, but I still wanted it because I knew the history of the car. It's the car throughout the first owners, Joe McCluskey. Uh, it was in SEMA many times. It was on the cover of Euro Lowrider in January 2001. Calendar shoot, and so I've gotten to learn a lot of the history from some of the people like our good friend David McCarty. He was around when this car was being built, so he's given me a lot of insight to what the car went through in the first few years. And so it's been a learning experience. I got to learn and meet a lot of new people that have history on the car. I've been getting pictures from people I've never met that have pictures of this car when it was just in the blue. Because it was from the factory, it was green. Joe painted it blue, then painted it purple, and then Mike Bishop painted it with graphics down at K Daddy's. And
Got it.
so getting all that stuff, it's been nice to learn really the history of this car.
Yeah, pretty cool. Now, when you get a car that has been built years ago, a lot of people don't realize it doesn't matter how high quality of a build it is. There's always going to be refreshing. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
everybody said like these cars are made to be driven, right? So like you got a classic car, you let it sit for 10 years. Like, yeah, you're gonna have to clean the fuel system. You're gonna have to do some brake work and things like that. On a car like this, were the bones good enough that you felt like, hey, we can jump in, refresh a few things, and then get back in the game?
Actually, right after I got it, I hopped in it. I think I changed the front bags out because one of them was rubbing really bad and was almost kind of worn through. So I just changed it out. The bags at the time were the wrong size of bags for the car. But
Built
I
too
hopped in
big.
the car and I drove over an hour down to Bakersfield for a car show at 80 miles an hour, and it drove great. But I've still gone through. I've replaced all the steering components, bushings, tie rods, ball joints, upper and lower control arms. I actually had Max Fish build a new set of arms for the car, and Max Fish is being one of the original builders of the car down at Bio Customs. And so I've spent a lot of time talking with Max how to make it a better driver, how to better the car from what it was, but still keep it bagged how they built it. This is not a bolt-in sleeve over strut bag. Has a actual SS5 bag in the front, and it's got a sleeve bag in the rear. And so they custom built upper and lower mounts, but it still has external shocks on all four corners. So the
Nice.
ride's really great. I finally last weekend had a friend do a video while I was driving, and I got to see how this road down a kind of bumpy backyard farm road, going in between some fields, and I was hitting bumps, but it wasn't moving all that much. And it's surprising for being built in '95, and being 30 years later, still bagged the same way. It rides great.
Yeah, it's a testament to some of those early innovators. And you think about one of the names that's synonymous with air suspension, Max Fish, certainly has written a book and has, did a column for years at Street Trucks and really no stranger. So tip of the cap, he's been on OLP. I know he's a little bit of an underground guy, right? Kind of off the grid a little bit, doing
Yeah.
his thing. But man, that dude puts the work in. So tip of the cap if he or his lady hears this.
And
Much love,
he's
Max.
actually not really running BioCustoms anymore. A gentleman by the name of Devin actually is running it now.
Yeah, well, good for those guys. One of the things that sticks out on the car, and it's so cool. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see here Sean P. If you're not, please continue consuming however you do, but also consider subscribing to YouTube. You get that richer experience. But what's neat to me, I grew up in an era when Flexstone was something that some of you guys will remember, like inside of speaker boxes and panels and things like that. I know, and it's such a nostalgic period correct look. When I see that rear panel, I get the feeling, and I hope I'm not off basis here, but like it almost feels like it has that little bit of a flexstone pattern, like as the base, and then the graphics are over it.
I would say Kyle did more of a marbling look to it. If you actually get it
Right.
up close, in this light, unfortunately, you don't get to see a lot of what's actually in this
Right,
paint.
right, right.
There's a lot of flake and pearls in the paint job. Kyle down at K Daddy's, he did an amazing job. And
Yep.
to put it lightly, he was very upset when he saw this car because he had already painted graphics on it once, and I'm
Like you
bringing
said, years
him 2012 actually. So he was very um
let
upset to
down.
see its
Yeah.
condition, and he tried to see if the graphics were still hopefully under there, but no. So he ended up having to sand the whole car down and rebody work it a little bit, and had it for about 14 months, but it took us a while to. It took me, excuse me a while to kind of I was very on the fence to go back to graphics or to keep it just in the candy purple that it was originally in. And for me, I've always liked very clean paint jobs. And, so sometimes for me, some cars look cleaner and better with just a single color, but some cars look better when they have the graphics on them. And so it was very hard for me. I think I must have racked my brain for a good 6 months going back and forth on what I was going to do. And then actually my good friend Corey Raybon, he posted up a doodle that he did of a car, a newer generation Honda Accord, and a graphic style on it. And I'm like, that's it. So, I can kind of thank Corey for kind of how the graphics came out on this. It inspired me to do it that way. And in the end, Corey actually got to do the pinstriping on the car too. So it worked out
Yeah.
quite.
It looks so good. I mean, I'm a big fan of like a gray and silver, and like for that on that rear corner, and then the graphics over it, and the colors are great, like the green that I'm seeing, the yellow, that that purplish pink, the orange. I'll pipe some photos in as well. That way you guys can see them if you're watching us and consuming this on YouTube. And to me, it's a car that is just a lot of fun, but it looks great. Now, in this day and era, in this day, we don't have like, Lowrider magazine isn't even, I don't think technically published as print.
No,
Euro Lowrider's long gone. Tailgate had the spinoff, their car magazine, High Beams. A lot of that stuff is gone, right? Does someone like Sean P, does someone like you, do you have an opportunity for this car to get featured? Does a mini truck and possibly hopefully hit you up and go, yo, we want to run it? Or is it one of those things you just have to wait and see?
some mini truck guys and shows they kind of look down on the cars, still. But to me, a build's a build. They all take time, money, and effort, and whether you built it, bought it, it doesn't really matter to me as long as it's your passion. And if I get featured again with this car, that'd be great. I'd love to see this car get featured again, but it's not a necessary thing in my life. It's like I said, I'm a pretty humble guy, and to be in a magazine would be great. I get happy and excited every time I see a picture of my car. It was in the Custom Truck Scene magazine from Japan, being in Forbidden. I was like, okay, cool, got to order that copy. And it's
Yep.
great. I love it, but it's not a necessity for me in life.
Dude, I love it,
Awards
man.
are a byproduct of having fun and making memories with friends. And we've got I don't know, between the two of us, we could fill our whole office with awards that we've achieved, and it's great. But it's the memories that make it better for me and the people that I've gotten to meet.
Yeah, it's well said, and I appreciate your candor on that because I'm always kind of curious to tap in. If you think back, the younger kinfolk that are getting in these clubs, maybe they're not even young, maybe they're just older dudes, and now they're getting in clubs or whatever. They may not realize back in the day we hustled because we wanted to get to the show. That's where the magazines were going to be.
Yep.
A lot of us would rather have gotten featured than maybe an award, right? Everybody had their preference. But to me, it's pretty cool that you have that approach because that's the best way you got to go about it. Unfortunately, there's not as many avenues now for people to get featured. So the challenge then becomes, hey, there's mini trucking, there's 4 a year. Well, how many features do they run? X amounts. Definitely a good approach, and we'll have to kind of see. But I hope as an enthusiast that guys like you that curate these cars or bring them back or whatnot, that there's some sort of media outlet out there that's, like an ECS magazine or a Gauge magazine, whether it's online or in print, get at Sean P and feature these badass rides.
I appreciate that. And I always appreciate the kind words I get from people that know this car, that know the history, that have seen it throughout the years, or seen where it went and that it's come back. And I get a lot of people saying that they're glad that I have it. They're glad to see that I've, kind of brought it back to what it used to be. But even Max, was kind of amazed to see it in its condition. And I was like, yeah, I've redone motor work to it, suspension work, electrical, all the air rides been redone. Thanks to our good friend Mike Alexander over at Airlift. And, and so it's like redoing everything, but still trying to keep some of the things what they were originally. I won't change the suspension. I won't put a bolt-in strut, sleeve over bag. I want it to stay bagged the way that Max and Joe originally built it. And, to
Awesome.
keep that part of the history. I've changed some things and, here and there, but I still want it to still have a lot of the styling of what they did.
Yeah, well said. Give me one sec. You're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm not going to say the name of the magazine because you got to go watch on YouTube. This is a rare magazine. Now, after these come out, these are like hundreds of dollars on YouTube, or excuse me, on eBay. But this magazine not only has one of my favorite actresses on the cover, wink, wink, right? Check this name out on who's on the cover as well. It says featured artist K Daddy Gan, K Daddy. So, these magazines, they bake in a little bit of the car culture and things like that. So, here's Mike over here making fun of me with some of my, remember Adam Sandler? He loved Nudie Magazine Day.
Yep.
But
You mean Billy Madison?
But check that out. Yeah. Or Billy Madison. Thank you. K Daddy right there.
So,
right.
Oh, there we go. Now I can actually see your whole screen.
Yeah. Sorry. I know I was trying to block out the,
Yeah, I'm looking at you, but the magazine's off to the side.
Yeah. So it's cool
You
that,
can show me later.
yeah. I'll send you the good photos. But, what's cool is like when you think about how talented he is, we've done some collab posts with the homie Josh Ellis has linked us up. K Daddy's been on this podcast. His lineage goes all the way back to his 720. Just, great guy. And to me, just truly talented. And it's awesome, again, for you guys that are watching on YouTube, when you look behind Sean P, that's K Daddy, right? That's K Daddy Customs.
Yep.
And that's him and his team. I think he's got I don't even know if he's got employees, but either way, like that's K Daddy's work. That's amazing.
Yeah. No, and when I got the car, like I said, it was completely spray painted front to back, and it only seemed right to take it back to him and have him repaint it again, because he was the one that did the original graphics on it before. To bring him back into it, it meant the world to me to have him do that.
All right, to put you on the spot, question for you about your car, right? So as, quote, mini truckers, it's almost like the Goonies never say die, right? Are you happy with it? Like, is there any other, like maybe a couple things that you want to do? Like if time and money and all that allows?
I still have more plans for it down the road. I'm still going to redo the trunk. I have a good friend of ours that's in our club. He wants to do the trunk. I just got to save up a few pennies before I can do that. And there's some interior stuff I want to do. There's some subtle changes that I want to do. But right now, I've always stated that I am going to die with this car, or it's going to die with me. I'm getting too old and too beat up to keep building these cars.
A couple more questions for you. On your hat, of course, you and Donna Mahaney Patrick, you guys rep RA to the fullest. It's got to be a great feeling if you think about all the way back in 91. This club's still around. There's a lot of OG members out there in Cali, Arizona, you name it, all throughout the country. But it's got to be a really good feeling, Sean, representing the triple line RA to the fullest.
So when we left another club a few years ago, we went about a year without being in a club. And I told Donna that, let's just finish our life out in RA, which, as many people know, Sean Mahaney was one of the founding members of. And I said, I think let's pay tribute to him and finish our life out with that club. I'm still a petitioning member. I haven't got my full logo yet, but you know what? It'll come when it comes. And I'm in, yes, I'm eager to have it on there, but I'm not going to hurry up for it. And, I've met so many great people with this club, and in fact, in life in general, hitting shows again and meeting people. We went back east to one of the Drop 'em Where Toys for Tots shows back in during COVID, actually in 2020. We flew over there for the weekend. I got to meet so many great people that unless you travel, you're never going to meet them. So meeting people that I have on Facebook and getting to meet them, and like our good friend Glenn Brown that ended up coming out to Vegas when we hosted a show in Vegas, and it was great. The friendships we've made,
man. GB is the man, and I don't give enough love to the Custom Scene podcast. Go check those guys out. They're good people. They're out there hustling, doing the dang thing, and I feel like I never get a chance to give him enough flowers. But big ups to the, really an OG. He's been around a long time.
Yeah, Glenn will definitely make you laugh.
Yep. Well, as we wind it down a little bit, I will ask you a couple more things. I want to ask you like how proud you have to be of your better half. In all seriousness, Donna Mahaney Patrick.
I couldn't
I'm
be
sure
more proud of her. She's,
Yeah.
not only for what she does here around our house that's, nobody needs to know about, but just her in general. She's been through a lot and she still fights every day to, get up and do what she does. And, she stuck to her guns when we were building Side Toy because I kept trying to change things up and she's like, nope, this is how I want it. And
Good for her.
I think there's only one thing on that truck she listened to me about, and I think that's the color of the tank mount. And yeah, that was a big debate for a while when we first got that. But, to see the achievements that she's, done and stuck to her guns, like I said. But, when she got that award from you guys, and you have obviously told me a week and a half before you actually announced it to her, that was the hardest secret to keep from my wife because I'm so proud of her, to get that kind of a honor from you guys meant the world to me. And I was very, very proud of her that I didn't want to keep it a secret. And it was just eating at me every day for that week and a half.
Yeah, well, Donna hit us up and she said, "Hey, why don't we do this? You tell him not to tell me, and then we'll see if he can really stick to his guns."
Yeah,
So
I
I'm
don't think
just
that
kidding.
happened. I know my wife
Oh
too well.
man, I love messing around though. I love joking around. But yeah, it's so awesome, man, and I appreciate the good word on that. And that's the cool thing about the scene. Years ago in the early 2000s, I remember flying to some shows and people said, "Wow, and what other scene can you fly throughout the country and you got a homie that'll pick you up and take you to a show and hang out?" And our scene still does that.
Yep.
You could argue, yeah, maybe the hot rod guys do it, but it's nothing like the mini truck scene in the world that we live in and the circles that we're in and the people that we know, whether you're in a club or not. The camaraderie, great word. Just so many good people out there. And I encourage people, like you said earlier, you live once, we don't know how much time we have, but you got to get out there. You got to have fun. You got to slap hands. If you want to talk, if there's someone out there you want to meet and talk to, go do it because, now's the time.
Yeah. And back to the whole RA thing, this club is definitely made a difference in my life, not only for the people that are in it, but the fact that it's made me realize back to what I started in, and it's that family vibe of mini trucking. They've always opened up their homes to us. If we're gonna be in that area, they're like, "Hey, we got a room for you. We'll let you in, and don't buy a hotel room." And family aspect is, that brotherhood, as some would say. Having that with RAs, it means a lot. And
Oh yeah.
I know I'm Sean number 2 in the in our chapter area. So but it's just I couldn't be happier with who I'm with now.
Hey, I'm a big Eminem fan. Will the real Sean P please stand up? Please stand up. Please stand up. No, but listen, my last question for you is this, right? And this is a motivational thing, though. It's no secret, like that, you've had, like many of us have potentially health challenges, right? Whether we're getting a little older, dare we say, or some old injuries and things like that. What advice would you give to someone? Like maybe they're not even in the mini truck scene. Maybe they wake up, they got a little bit of pain. They're challenged, like, man, I don't want to go to work today. Like whether it be a child of yours or a friend or a neighbor, like what advice do you give people to say, keep pushing?
Don't put off today what you're going to forget, don't put off tomorrow till tomorrow what you can do today. So it's like, if I'm in pain daily, that's a known fact. If you see me at shows, I'm either walking with my cane or I'm in a scooter. I can't even do a 3-day show anymore without being in excruciating pain. And, I still sit there and say, get up, get to work, and because to me, sitting idle in a chair is no way to live, and I'm not referring to somebody who has to be in a wheelchair, but,
Correct.
sitting in my recliner, on days, I have days where I just sit in my recliner because
Sure.
but I usually last about a day and then I have to do something. I can't continue to sit in that chair. And my poor wife had to deal with me 2 Januaries ago. I tore ligaments in 3 different areas on my ankle, and I was laid up in my recliner for a month and a half before I could really get up and move around. And that was the worst, most frustrating time for me because I have to do stuff. I can't just sit. And I think if you take the time and just say, hey, I can work through this pain, you'd be amazed at what you can create from that. Because sometimes when I'm in pain, I get out and I do the hardest work I can do to take my mind off of that pain, and it helps.
Yeah, and here's what I'll say in closing. Like for instance, I said this earlier, like you never know what someone's going through, right? And it's easy to look at someone else and go, "Oh, it must be nice," or this, "Oh, you got this nice car." But I'm a big Eminem fan, and I listened to his manager Paul Rosenberg did a podcast called Paul, I think it was called the Paul Pod, a basic name, but he did I don't know 10, 12 shows, and one of the episodes he had mentioned that Eminem had what's it called tinnitus, where you hear the ringing in your ear, right? And like the world that we live in, it's like, he could put an album out and it could be like, oh, he's a piece of shit. He did this. He's not good, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, little do we know, like people are going through stuff in their life. You might go, oh, well, what's the big deal? Well, one person I knew in Tampa that had tinnitus, like he said that shit is like, it's a constant ringing in your ear, right? So I just challenge people, and I know none of us are perfect. I know even, when I was younger, I probably looked at certain people or did this or did that. But I mean, you have to really go into life, I think, something you learn and pass on to others. And to me, the biggest thing is don't judge other people. If you see someone walking with a cane, it doesn't mean, oh, that guy's working the system. You have no idea what other people are going through. And to me, when people like you persevere through it, it makes me feel good because, like my sister had a very, very tough challenge with substances, right? And she's since passed away. And I used to look at it and say, man, you have one, then you had two, then you had three beautiful children, right? And you don't try at all to like better your life, or you don't try to get up and go to work or do anything. And I'm watching this HBO special from a guy that's his son is like a cripple, and he's like running marathons, pushing the cart and like jumping in the water with the boat and pulling his son and doing all this stuff. And, I challenge people to say, look, we all have different circumstances, but if you just get up and you try and you devise a plan, you can do it.
See, I've had a few people because, like I said, I am technically retired, and, they're like, oh, it must be nice to be retired. It's like, I'll give you all the pain I deal with on a daily basis, and then you tell me how nice it is, and, you can't judge a book by its cover, like you said, but, not all disabilities can you see? I mean, you don't know if a person's battling a mental disorder or suffering from PTSD. And I have a good friend, Eric, who's actually one of the guys that helped me do all the framework to Side Toy. He suffers from PTSD. And so, he is a disabled veteran, and people look at him, he looks normal, fine, healthy, walks fine, walks straight, no cane, no nothing. But you know what? It was hard to explain to people that, not everybody's disability you can see.
Correct.
And it's a state of mind. And I've learned a lot more being around, Trinity and the wheelchair life and stuff. And so it's like, it's opened my eyes up to, you'd be amazed at some of these things that people are doing in wheelchairs. Other than, not only referring to like Aaron Farthingham, AKA Wheels with Nitro Circus doing flips on the big ramps and mega ramps. And, so it's just, you see the joy that take away somebody's legs for a day and just, tie them up and be like, okay, now move around. And put them in a wheelchair and let them realize that, these guys in wheelchairs, they do a lot. They work hard every day to even get out of bed, and so that's kind of a looking at me, and I'm like, yeah, I can still walk and get out of bed. I'm not strapped in a wheelchair. And it's like, it tells me I'm lazy if I can't compete with them, and that's one of the things that drives me to, hey, my life could be worse, and then take advantage of what you have and just live life. Just get out, do the stuff you want to do. Don't, I
You
mean,
have
you
to.
don't break your wallet doing it, but get out and do the stuff you want to do and enjoy life.
Yeah, a buddy of mine, coworker, just got back from Alaska. He's got family there. He was there 2 weeks. And I was joking with him today. Somebody goes, "Oh, did you get to see the boats from, the fishing show?" And he said, "Well, last time I was there, I did." And I said, anytime I'm having a bad day or you're stressed out, go put the Deadliest Catch on and see what those guys, like when we're going to bed, they're going out in the middle of the night, in the middle of the Bering Sea. And, it's like, I mean, you talk about stressed out, 5 minutes out there, some of those rookies, man, they're poking their eyes out, like going, dude, get me out of this nightmare. So,
Yeah,
your situation, in my opinion, can always be tougher.
those
I don't
fishing
want to say
boats
it
are
can
no
always be.
joke, man.
Yeah. And I'm like,
That's not a job
don't
for the
sign
week,
me up.
man.
Yeah, don't sign me up for that, man. I don't have the cojones, you know what I'm saying? Sean P, it's been great. Folks can follow you. Give out your Instagram name. It's Sean Patrick.
It's Mini Truckin Sean Patrick, actually.
Yeah, Mini Truckin, and then together a couple, and then you'll just SEAN
Yep.
Patrick, and you'll see it. Go give him a follow. Much love to Donna Mahaney Patrick. You know, relaxed atmosphere, all of our kinfolk out there. But before I wrap, is there anything else you wanted to say? I feel like I kind of picked your brain on all the things I wanted to.
No, I just, you kind of got me on that whole inspirational thing now. And, I just hope that, kids, when we're at car shows and you see these younger kids, don't be afraid to let them sit in the seat. Don't be afraid to, let them ask questions. And, you never know. You could be the one that inspires that kid to go become the next Max Fish or the next, AKA Billy Bob. We all know him. And, because you never know what your little spark in some kid's life could do for them. And, because we all had somebody that sparked our interest in getting into cars, it's kind of funny. I'm the only car person in my entire family, and so, like I said, it just, be respectful of those kids and, reach out to your neighbor kid. If you see him kind of watching what you're doing, say, hey, come on over. You want to learn how to do this, or, I'll teach you how to turn wrenches, run the welder, run, cutting metal, how to be safe. Yeah. Take time out of your day.
I love it, my brother. Words well spoken, and I'll stick with my guns. Here's my story. Will the real Sean P please stand up?
Nobody wants to see this.
That's my man right there. Beard life, good dude, great family. I can't wait to come out there and slap hands and just chop it up, and reminisce about the good days. But you know what? Doc Brown said, your future hasn't been written. So get out there, take some words of encouragement with this episode. And even if tomorrow you can't, make it happen, devise a plan, get out there, live your dreams the best you can. And let's keep on keeping on.
And you're welcome anytime if you make it out this way.
My brother, thank you so much. Respect.